thank you, New York City, for being here tonight to support Shane's inspiration. Thanks to everyone for making this happen. Our honorees, Paul Hastings, and the living legend, Cheetah Rivera. It's just an honor to be in your presence, and here we are. It's unbelievable. Thanks Andrew McBean and Ron Abel and Brad Thornton and Scott Morrow, the incredible lineup of talent, acts that I certainly can't follow, but I'm going to try. They cut my song, which I'm a little pissed about. I was pissed. I'm kind of happy now. But frankly, you also might not know this, or some of you do, but this all started with a woman named Joan Ryan. I guess you know. Okay. So Joan and my wonderful wife Catherine were mall walking a year ago in Los Angeles.
Don't make fun.
If none of you have done mall walking, you should know. It's air conditioned, it's flat, you get to pass old people as you go around. So it's fabulous. They love it. But Joan, about a year ago, said to Catherine, geez, I'd love to do something for Shane's inspiration. And, you know, we were thinking a little cabaret or something, a little benefit. Well, through Joan and friends and lots of elbow grease, look at this, we're at Carnegie frickin' Hall. So thank you, Joan and Ryan, that I am but a co-founder. As with everything in life, the true driving forces that started this whole thing are two unstoppable women. One is our forever friend and current Shane CEO, Tiffany Harris. Tiffany, the other is her half, Catherine Curry-Williams. Are you there, Catherine? I let her do all the talking at home. She lets me do all the talking out here, so she can have a couple glasses of wine before the program. It's all worked out. But let me tell you a little bit about Catherine and a little history about why we do what we do. First of all, Shane's inspiration may be based in LA, but its roots are right here in New York. I grew up in Yonkers, New York. Anyone from Yonkers? Hey! Thornton High School, okay. I went to college at SUNY Cortland State. We got them all. After graduation, I moved to Manhattan, where I bartended from the west side to the east side. Any bartenders in the house? Rupert, 72nd in Columbus. We were the kids of the 80s right there. Then in 1990, I picked up and moved 3,000 miles to Los Angeles, where I met and eventually married a girl from Brooklyn. Go figure. Brooklyn, Bensonhurst. Let's hear it. Hello. Not too hot. So anyway, Catherine and I get married in 1996, and 10 months later, we're blessed with our incredible son, Shane. He was 7 pounds, a pink, perfect, and beautiful boy, but he was unable to move, or cry, or draw a breath on his own. Unbeknownst to us, Shane was born with a genetic disorder called spinal muscular atrophy, SMA, something we had never heard of. It rendered him paralyzed from about here down. And the best thing the doctor could tell us was, the best case scenario being that he will spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. Now, needless to say, obviously we were in shock and heartbroken and devastated. It's 20 years hence, we can all talk about it now, it's fine. But back here in New York at that time, my nieces Emily and Dorothy, who are here, they were about 10 and 7 years old respectively back then. And by the way, Dorothy's getting married next weekend. It was very nice of her. It was very nice of her to schedule her wedding around this, so we really appreciate it. So, we got this, we're going from here, we're going to my daughter's college weekend down in Goucher, and then we're going to go to the wedding. It's all nicely compacted in. So thank you everyone for cooperating. At any rate, my late sister Miriam, my dear late sister Miriam, their mom, told them, hey, your cousin Shane was born, and it looks like he's going to be living in a wheelchair. Now, from the mouth of babes, my little 7-year-old Dorothy said, what's the big deal? We'll just build ramps everywhere. I know, right? That's we said the same thing. It's taken me years to get into that sentence without crying. So thank you. So while we were in the hospital with Shane, we started researching putting up ramps everywhere, basically, preparing to raise a child with a disability. But sadly, Shane only lived 2 weeks. But he left us, obviously, changed forever, and that's why you see this here. In the midst of our grief, back to my sister Miriam once again, about 9 months, 10 months later, she sent us an article. She raised her kids up in Eastchester. She was up in Westchester, near Yonkers. And she sent us an article in the newspaper about an incredible lady from Connecticut named Amy Barzak. She was building a playground in Connecticut in memory of her son, Jonathan, Jonathan's dream, who had also passed away from SMA. Now, when I read the article, like my sister, we were like, wow, SMA, okay, it must be more common than we thought. Catherine read the article and went, playground. There would be no playground where Shane could have played in 1997, 98. So Catherine made it our mission. She said, we are going to build a playground where Shane would have played with his friends had he lived. Catherine's the one that took Shane's empty bedroom, a room that she had decorated and prepared for Shane beautifully, and converted it into an office, a little computer, a little phone line. She drafted her best friend, Tiffany Harris, and they went on to make miracles happen in that little room. So again, my love and gratitude and undying admiration goes to my wife, Kat. Elbow grease and planning and funding. So I want to leave you with a call to action, and here's why. Statistics show roughly 10 to 15% of any given community contains people with some form of disability. And for argument's sake, let's just take the lower number, 10%. Doesn't sound like a lot. But in a city of 8.5 million like New York, we're talking 850,000 people. I did that math myself. So now let's keep lowballing and estimate that 1/4 of that 850,000 people are children. That means there are well over 200,000 kids in this city who are waiting to play. Kids with wheelchairs, walkers, in braces, autism, Down syndrome, visually impaired, hearing impaired, cognitive challenge. 200,000 kids who are waiting to play. Now we have a saying at Shane's Inspiration. It's a belief we all have, that it's the most fundamental birthright of all children, of all abilities, to simply play in the park. And one of the nicest things I ever read or was said about Shane's Inspiration came from an article in the LA Times, excuse me. It was in 2000, right after we had opened Shane's Inspiration. The name of the article was Where Kindness is Catching. It was written by an incredible writer named Mary McNamara, who went on to win some Pulitzer Prizes. And in the article, she says that before she even knew the purpose of the playground, she marveled that the loving spirit with which it was built was somehow contagious to the families that played there. Parents of every ethnicity and background, she said, talked to each other and shared diaper wipes and juice boxes and looked after each other's kids. Shane's Inspiration, she said, and I'll quote, is a place where grown-ups realize, at least for an hour on a Friday afternoon, that it really isn't that hard to be nice to each other. That although we may dress differently and speak differently and have different abilities, most of us need a tissue now and then, a push on the swing, or a graham cracker every now and then. She watched kindness catch on and credited our playground for making that happen. And that's what we want to do right here in the greatest city in the world. But they don't happen by themselves. Getting a playground built sounds easy, but it never is. Each of the 70 playgrounds we have built had one thing in common. They were really hard to build. What they took was community effort. It requires love and support and effort from the local community. There are so many great and worthy causes and charities, but we like to think of ours as something tangible. You can see it, you can walk around it, you can play on it. And whether you donate $5 or $5,000, whether you connect us with a corporate sponsor or help paint faces at one of our fundraisers, you will be able to then walk around that playground and say, I helped build this. You will be able to watch kids play and laugh and be free and say, I made that happen. So this is a call to action, New York. Make no mistake about it. We can't do this without you. We ask that the good people of the greatest city in the world to share. We want you to go home and share what you see and saw here tonight. Not just singing the songs that you heard, but actually share the information that you learned as well. Talk about it with friends, with everyone. When I used to walk Grace around here when she was about 3 years old, it's just, the city just as it is every time I'm walking around, it just swept me up, and I just said, Grace, you know, there's New York in your blood, it's in your heart. These are your people. Look around, Grace. This is New York City. These are your people. And about a week or so later, we were back and we were walking around Los Angeles, and she looked up at me and said, Daddy, are these my people too? I said, no, honey, these are your neighbors. So what I want to thank you, New York, for is thank you for being our people. We love you. Thank you for embracing Shane's inspiration, and every kid who's waiting to play. Please, take the envelopes, be our ambassadors, help us make this playground a reality. We love you, God bless you, and have a great night. Right now to present the Champions for Inclusion Award. You know, I've been writing television. I've been blessed, lucky, so lucky. I started off as an actor here in New York, and I'm such a good actor, I'm a writer now. But I've been writing for television about 20 years, and so I've gotten to work with some incredibly talented and wonderful people. I've been really blessed. Very few nightmare stories I can tell you. But I have to say that the guy I'm about to introduce, while he's off-puttingly handsome, is also one of the kindest, funniest, smartest, most generous people, a hell of an actor. You once knew him as Tony DiNozzo on my show, NCIS, but now you know him as Jason Bull on Bull, Monday nights at 10. Welcome to the eyes are set for tonight. Please give it up for my dear friend, Mr. Michael Weatherly.
That was my model. We talked about this. Okay, all right, I'm watching you, Carnegie Hall. It is indeed my pleasure to be here on this most inclusive night in support of a great organization that is near and dear to my heart. The founder, Scott Williams, and I go way back to the aforementioned NCIS, which I called NKISS. It didn't catch on. But when I was first introduced to Shane's inspiration and the extraordinary work that they do in the communities throughout the world, Scott had me do something that unfortunately was right after the LA Marathon, and I could barely pull myself out of bed, and I got there, and I went to one of these playgrounds and saw it, and it was extraordinary. It moved me. My wife is a primary care physician, and I came home and I went, okay, so we've got some things to think about, because I don't think about playgrounds in my day-to-day life. So when I was asked if I would present the Corporate Champion for Inclusion Award to Paul Hastings, I said, come on, I would be honored. And then I began to wonder, who is this amazing Paul Hastings guy? And it reminded me when I was 12, and I was like, I can't wait to meet Mr. Led Zeppelin. I thought it was the coolest first name, Led. It turns out Paul Hastings is actually two gentlemen. A few decades ago, decided to combine their names to create one powerful and philanthropic international company. And now that I play the head of a kind of sort of law firm on television, you can imagine my delight to discover that there is not one individual, but an entire firm that bands together to do some